welcome, Juliet Peay. It is amazing to have you on the Promise Brand Show today. You are a copywriter, a brand coach, owner of your personal brandcoach.com. And what an amazing journey you've had to this place. First off, to get started, why do you like words?
Oh, I love that question. Thanks, Luke, for having me. I just want to say that much.
Yes.
Words can have so much meaning and so much potential. Um, I used to watch Us Told by Ginger growing up, and I loved how she just kept a diary and just
Yeah.
wanted to keep track of her life. And I feel like words can bring such different perspective to
Hmm.
things. Of course, storytelling is a big part of that. You think of legacies of stories that we've heard for a long time. There's so much
Hmm.
teaching in that. But one of my favorite examples is if you take a sentence and you emphasize a different word, it can completely change the meaning of it. So if
Wow.
it's something like, I didn't say you had a bad attitude. And if you say, like, I didn't say you had a bad attitude, is very different than I didn't say you had a bad attitude. Like, I just love
Hmm.
how there's so much just, I don't know, interesting nuance with words.
Yeah, yeah. As you're talking, of course, words make up stories, and I'm emphatic about stories here at Parable. But um,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about like the breakdown of stories and what gets you excited about not only your own story, but you work with individuals all the time telling stories.
Mhm.
What gets you excited about telling stories? And then on top of that, what's kind of like that first piece you look for in terms of what makes a story excited?
Yeah. My thoughts on stories, or what I love about stories, or what makes a good story, is the building tension. So
Hmm.
in the work that I do, people are trying to tell their own story and they feel so humdrum about it because they're so close to themselves. It doesn't seem exciting.
Yeah.
But when you kind of zoom out and you look at all of those pieces, you can see where those changes are. And
Hmm.
so in the work that I do, if I'm either writing somebody's about page, like I want to know the time that they made the decision to, leave corporate America. Like
Yeah.
what was that piece of the story? What was that tension point? Or even when it comes to helping people like dream bigger, how can
Hmm.
I, even through like ethical persuasion, help them think about how their life could be different, and what's the tension
Hmm.
there, like what are they feeling right now that they could release and feel,
Yeah.
just something different. So I think it's always about the tension and the change points. And when I work with my clients, I always ask their clients, like, how did they decide to work with them?
Yeah.
Because I want those like decision making triggers. I feel like it's all about like the tension and the triggers. Where's that change
Yeah.
moment?
That is so good. As I think about that, and I struggle with this too, owning a business. Sometimes people are just like scared of their own story, and maybe we wouldn't
Oh
say it
yeah,
that way, but you were saying like as you're talking to someone, they just kind of like, well, I don't really have a story, right? Like we're too close to everything that's going on in our own life, and we like the blinders come on. I was just talking to someone the other day, and they were like, Luke, like, I don't think you realize how powerful your story is. And I love stories. And I love to talk about them. But in your experience, what makes people so afraid to and so
yeah,
reserved maybe to tell their story?
yeah. I think for one, it's just the fear of showing up, or just the fear of sounding like
Mm,
self-involved. But we know we live in just kind of a self-promotional world where like it's just a
yeah.
necessity at this point.
Hmm.
And everyone has, I mean, even the most confident person in the world has a little bit of a self-esteem issue if they're not
Sure.
like working on it actively. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of people just feel like they don't want to be showy, but also I've written case studies for other people, and I've actually hired a writer to write my own case studies, and we
Hmm.
downplay our success. We downplay like our strategy so much.
Oh wow.
But
Yeah.
when somebody else is telling the story, they don't feel the need to downplay you. Like they'll celebrate you.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's always just a little bit of like a veil of self-esteem that kind of covers people. And then also, I think that when you are in the moment, you're feeling something so much more strongly, but when
Hmm.
you look back at it, it doesn't seem as important. Like I remember when I left corporate America, I
Hmm.
download or I deleted the Outlook app from my phone. And that
Yeah.
felt like such a big moment. Like I was like, oh my goodness, never again do I have to be like constantly checking my email, you know,
Right.
seeing if my boss needs something. Like I can have a lunch break without staring at the Outlook app. And it felt
Hmm.
like huge at that moment. But now I look at that and it's like, okay, I deleted Outlook off my phone. Who cares? Like, not a big deal. So I
Yeah.
think people lose that essence of how big something felt in the moment.
Yeah. As you were getting into leaving corporate America, stepping into copywriting and now, brand building for people, what part of your story did you have to like look at and go, yeah, that's just not true. I'm going to step into this anyway.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things was I finally felt like I had the dream job that I wanted.
Yeah.
I had gotten my degree in journalism. I didn't really love the news, so I decided to go into marketing. But all of
Cool.
the jobs that I got at first were kind of like marketing slash receptionist, and I was doing so
Hmm.
much admin work that I
Yeah.
really wasn't able to like cultivate that creativity. Then I got a job that paid really well, that was strictly admin, and that's
Hmm.
where I like my creativity really like suffocated. And so I started
Yeah.
pursuing creativity again, and through that, I had a blog that was kind of my creative outlet. And then I started freelancing.
Hmm.
And I had used like my portfolio from the blog and the freelancing work to finally get a full time marketing job where I was doing
Yeah.
everything. And I was still freelancing in the morning. So I would freelance like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then go into like my dream marketing job, 9 to 5, where I had so
Wow.
much autonomy. They
Yeah.
trusted me so much. I was able to do so much like strategy and implementation. It was amazing. But
Hmm.
after a year of doing freelance and also doing the marketing job, I just kind of hit a
Hmm.
wall where I was like, okay, I can either believe that from this point forward, I can grow in corporate America and I
Hmm.
can believe that like hard work is going to give me promotions, hard work is going to, build my resume, or I
Yeah.
can believe that it's worth it to just invest in my own potential and see how far I can take this.
Yeah.
So I chose that path.
Yeah.
But I think that that's where people kind of get hung up. Like it takes a while to decide to really
Yeah.
go out on your own. But
Yeah.
that's what it was for me. Like I was like, I can either just believe, and put my fate in other people's hands, or I can
Hmm.
see how it goes when I do it.
Yeah. And for me, it's so funny because I feel like in the business world, it's just too easy, maybe fear based, but it's too easy to fall into the norm of like, I have to go do this, and then I've got to go do this, and then and then there's this ladder I have to climb. And in many industries, it's like that's still the narrative
Yeah.
when it doesn't really have to be. And one of your core messages is to embrace and unleash your inner celebrity. How did that come about? And talk to me about what it really means to you and then the people you serve.
Yeah. That is such a great question. So a friend helped me come up with that in a mastermind group because I
Yeah.
was trying to just define my messages. I felt like, and we see this a lot, people decide that they're going to do marketing and then
Hmm.
all of their messaging is just like, use marketing to grow your business. And that's it. Like, or outsource
Yeah.
this so you can grow your business, you can get more sales. And like, that's the message over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And in my work with solopreneurs, I just wanted to get to something a little bit deeper and a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
And my mastermind was asking me like, what's interesting about you outside of just like being a copywriter? Because there's a million
Yeah.
copywriters, there's a lot of personal brand coaches. Like, what do you nerd out about? And I have always loved celebrity memoirs because I love the story of
Hmm.
seeing how somebody became successful and also kind of sometimes the underbelly of that success.
Yeah.
And so they saw me like light up talking about celebrity memoirs and they were like, you should do something with celebrity in your branding. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. Especially for solopreneurs, because you talk about that confidence thing, how people, they're
Yeah.
afraid to share their story. But if you think that like there's a little, inner celebrity inside of you that is willing to like put themselves out there, grow
Hmm.
a following, get some fans, because that's what clients really are. Like they're fans. They like your work,
Yeah.
they want to buy from you. So I kind of started hooking onto that.
Yeah. So a lot of your building a brand. I mean, you own a business. You're running things. This is what you do. So a lot of your own building a brand kind of came from, in a way, unleashing your own inner celebrity, if I'm not wrong, and
Yeah,
kind of pushing away those thoughts of like, yeah, I can't really do this, or I should be doing something else.
yeah. One
As
thing, somebody asked me the other day, they were like, "How are you so good at LinkedIn?" And I'm like, "I'm just sporadic. Like, if I have a thought, if I have an idea, I'm putting it
yeah.
out there. So many people follow templates, and that's fine if they want to do that. But I feel like after a while, you can see the noise of like
Hmm.
a templated, message or something.
Hmm.
And I think it's an advantage to just be a little crazy, be myself, share what I want to. I'm running a
Yeah.
challenge right now. It's called the Invisible to Icon Challenge, and I simply just did it for fun. It's a free challenge, and I had people
Hmm.
join, and they get a prompt every day that's personal. It's not professional at all. It's not
So
like
cool.
marketing based. It's just like, hey, tell me what your name means. And they've been
Yeah.
posting on LinkedIn, and it's been so cool and fun to see. And everybody said to
Hmm.
do it paid, and I was like, I don't want to do a paid challenge. I just want to do
Yeah.
something fun to get people out of their shell a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to the professionals that you're working with, a lot of solopreneurs and people that are they're pushing kind of this big ball up a mountain. In terms of their brand, their personality, what do you feel like have been some of the more kind of important breakthroughs for clients, or like as you've worked with clients, maybe where do you find like the most breakthrough in the work that you do for them?
Yeah. I find the breakthrough when they realize that they have so much to share. Like they
Mm.
don't have to just share, their morning routine or that they love Red Bull or coffee. They don't just have to share like a couple tiny things about themselves. They can go
Yeah.
back to like, something that they loved when they were 10 or
Hmm.
a moment that they had in college. Like there's
Hmm.
so much material that people have that they can share,
Hmm.
that I think is really cool. And I think the biggest change is when people realize that like other people connect to that. And
Hmm.
I think online is what makes it so hard because I always give the example of like, if you are, let's say you're like taking your kid to open house in
Hmm.
kindergarten or something, meet another mom who like you really connect with, you think she's really cool, you find out what she does, maybe she's like a life coach or something, and she shares her
Hmm.
story with you about being a life coach, and you're like, I like that, but I wouldn't have, this person's not seeking out a life coach. They just kind of happen to be in the same room.
Yeah.
Um, versus like online, if someone's not looking for a life coach, but they see somebody posting 24/7, like, I'm a life coach, I'm a life coach, I'm a life coach. You have no personal connection to that person. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really care if you're not looking for it. And so by sharing more personal stories online, like, I have a friend who shared about how her kid was learning how to drive. And
Hmm.
so many people are in the comments,
Oh
like
my
relating
goodness.
to that
Yeah.
experience. And people are always like, yeah, but that's not business related. And it's like,
Oh
okay, but
man.
you're establishing a relationship, you're establishing a friendship that maybe it's 5 years from now, but there is a
Hmm.
connection there because people
Right.
do business with people that
Yep.
they like. And so it's
Preach
not
it.
always about like, yeah, it's not just about showing off,
Hmm.
someone's professionalism. It's also just about sharing that, personal stuff. So it's a differentiator.
My goodness. The idea that LinkedIn has to be this place where we share our marketing material, and when we're at a trade show and when we're, you know, even like client testimonials are great and they should be posted every once in a while, but
Yeah.
like the idea of stepping away from that is so traumatizing, I think,
Yeah.
for many people. Um, and as I think of it, so I work a lot with B2B businesses
Yep.
where their social media marketing strategy oftentimes is that like corporate, here we are at this thing, blah 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 blah. What kind of like, I don't know, what kind of perspective do you have going from someone who is just, this is their brand, it's, they're an individual solopreneur, to, a large corporation? Like how can a corporation, a business, small business, 100 employees, 500 employees, how can they implement some of these things? What does that look like? Because on some level, it is a little bit hard to like have a personal relationship with a corporation. Um,
Yeah.
but I've seen some people do it in interesting ways, and so I'm curious to hear, like, as you look at the landscape right now, and maybe even there's some people or companies you follow that you feel like are doing it well. How do companies do that?
Yeah. I think they really have to empower their employees. And I think this is much more of your territory. So I would love for you to share your thoughts and your perspective on this too.
Yeah.
But I feel like they really have to empower their employees. And I mean like every employee. And
Hmm.
empowering does not mean like just share the company update. Like
Oh my
that's not a
gosh.
personal brand. That's not a
We need
personal
to
brand.
stop doing that. Repost a
Yeah.
company update, guys.
Yes, yeah, and they're like,
Oh,
"That's your personal brand," and it's like, no. I
yeah.
think, and I mean, I don't know how this actually looks because it's not something you can like force on people. Like, there's going to be some people in a corporation that are going to be
Yeah.
like, "I don't want to be on LinkedIn. I don't care
Yeah.
about that. I don't have anything personal to share." But for the people that do want to, I think that there used to be such a stigma of like employees shouldn't be on the internet during the workday. They need to be
Yeah.
doing whatever. But it's like,
Sure.
hey, you know what? If your team just has like an awesome breakthrough and they want to post about it on LinkedIn, that's going to be serving your company.
Yeah.
So let them do that. And I loved what you're saying just about like posting about trade shows is there's not really a story if you're just taking a picture of like a conference and being like, we were
Yeah.
at the conference, had a great time, so
Come see
wonderful to
our
connect with
booth.
other leaders in the industry. Yes, it's like tell me the story. Like, how
Oh
was
my
setup? Was
gosh.
it horrible?
Yeah.
Like, what gifts are you
Yeah.
giving away? Why did you choose that? Did you have to go through 15 rounds of decision making? Like,
Yeah.
make it fun, share something interesting, share a story with the lead up to the trade show or what's
Hmm.
been going on so far, not just the generic like we're so excited and like that's it. Like
Right.
we got to have more than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, if you look at the landscape of the past 20, 30, 40 years, the way we consume things as individuals, not like businesses aside, the individuals in this world, specifically in America, are consuming things and they want to know the the intimate story. They want to know, you
Yeah.
know, why does this matter to me? And who are you even? Like they desire relationship. I think we're in a world, just gosh, even if you wanted to go even more micro, like we are in a chaotic time with
Yeah.
all sorts of political division and uh, even like businesses firing and laying off tons of people. Like we're just in a
Yeah.
weird time. But because of that, I think, especially the past 3 years, um, people even more so want to know, like,
Hmm.
will I be safe here? And it's such an interesting thing to
Yes.
think about in business because it's like, well, that's like wooey, but I mean, quite literally, whatever you believe about the pandemic or not, uh, people wanted to know, am I safe?
Yeah.
And I think it comes from this core fear, maybe that everybody has of wanting to be loved and wanting to feel
Yes.
safe around people that they're around. Now, for me, that feels like a very biblical concept, but whatever religion or you know morals you feel like you have, I don't think you could deny that people feel like they need to be loved, seen
Yeah.
and heard and safe. Maybe it's just safe. And so I think as you look at that, it's like, well, how can I make potential new hires feel safe here? How can I
Hmm.
build a culture where people feel like they don't have to like close, open a bunch of tabs and close things like when the boss walks by? How can that culture
Yes.
be created? And I think um, one, you kind of have to like lead it out. If you're a leader, you have to lead it out that way. So I would highly recommend leaders within organizations to be involved on some level in LinkedIn or storytelling, or maybe it's not even LinkedIn, maybe they can't be in LinkedIn, maybe it's just an email video to all their employees like, hey, this is I'm out here doing this thing, right? Like I just think
Yeah.
if you can get a little bit more personal, and I know there's all the personality types out there and tests at companies, say people in their work are like, some people like it more direct, some people want the conversation, and I get that, and I think that's good. But on some level, if you're especially if you're leading people, leading a team, I think you need to create a safe place, and I think you can do that in a way through social
Yeah.
media and just telling your story. What if your boss told some story that was like about how maybe they just lost something in their life, or maybe they did take their kid to kindergarten and they loved the way the teachers interacted, and they took that and they're like using that in their business. Like, what if they shared more of those stories where it was like, you know what, I'm not just an employee working for you, but uh, actually I have kids too, and they go to kindergarten, and
Yeah.
I can relate to that because we have endured similar pain, and I think again when it comes to that thing, like people want to be safe, and people want to know like you're actually able to understand my pain, which is a weird concept, very like
Yeah.
therapeutical and psychological,
Hmm.
but I think most people are thinking
Yes.
it,
I
and
love that. I
it's
love
just a
that.
it's a curious thing to me. Um, I mean, are you seeing that in
Oh, yes.
your clients as well?
Yes, I completely agree. And that's where it comes to where, like, it's exactly the same with solopreneurs looking for clients. The thing is,
Hmm.
they leave corporate America because there is such tension sometimes between,
Yeah.
leadership styles, or they're not allowed to bring their personality or something. Like,
Hmm.
there's always some type of tension, or missed value. They don't feel valued or appreciated.
Sure.
They go out on their own and they think, like, oh my gosh, I'm so free. I'm so free from all of that, like,
Hmm.
unsafety that they had. But then they start thinking, okay, I have to make a living, I have to get clients. And what happens is they kind of cocoon themselves back into some type of like corporate,
Hmm.
vanilla like presence, because they are then afraid
Yeah.
to like, they're afraid of cancel culture, or like upsetting
Oh
a
my
client, or not
goodness.
attracting clients, because
Yeah.
then they feel like, okay, money is my top priority, money is going to make
Yeah.
me safe, and so I'm not going to share as much as I wanted. But then
Hmm.
they end up with clients that they don't really align with, because they're
Hmm.
not willing to speak about some of their personal values.
Hmm.
Um, but then they think like, okay, well, if I start sharing my personal values now, what if like people, don't like that? And what if I'm rejected from that? And I'm like, but also, what if you connect with clients and people who share that with you?
Yeah.
And then you have dream clients who you don't have to feel,
Hmm.
um, you know, like dimmed by, or that you can't be open about different things.
Hmm.
And it's almost exactly the same, like whether it's in a corporation or whether it's
Hmm.
just in a one-to-one client relationship with solopreneurs, is you're going to feel more safe and loved and confident about
Yeah.
what you're doing if you're
Hmm.
connecting with the right people
Yeah.
that will accept you for who you are. And it doesn't
Oh
always
my
have to
gosh.
be
Yeah.
like, it doesn't mean that you have to connect with people that are exactly like you,
Hmm.
but you at least know that you can connect with respectful people who will respect and embrace you for who you are.
So good. As I understand it, truthfully, I think this conversation specifically is what you teach in many ways. Uh, could you break down the icon framework for us?
Yes, yes, I'd be happy to. So the icon framework, the pillars are identity, connection, offer, and nurture. And it starts with identity, which this is what
Yeah.
is different from a lot of other personal branding coaches, because
Hmm.
yes, your brand is always going to be about your audience in some sense. But
Hmm.
in my framework, we're not starting with audience, because that is what makes people afraid and feel like they have to shape shift into what
Hmm.
their audience wants. And so I call it kind of like unfrankensteining your brand,
Yeah.
because people think like, okay, my clients, maybe I want them to be a little bit more like high ticket or luxury clients. So
Hmm.
I'm going to choose like white and gold as my branding. They don't like white and gold. They just feel like, this is what I think people want, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
okay, the people that I'm working with, they're wearing blazers, so let me make
Hmm.
sure that I'm suiting up every day. And it's like, if you're working from home and you're running around with your dogs and your kids, a blazer probably is not actually suiting your lifestyle.
Just the top
But
half. Just the top
yes, yes, just the top half.
half.
And they, are just different things like that. Like they start Frankensteining themselves. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe I need to be doing blogging or something, and they hate doing it. Like I feel
Hmm.
like I've seen so many people do things that they hate, that they're not aligned with, for the sake
Hmm.
of the audience. So that's why I
Wow.
start with identity, and I get people just back into remembering like what they like, who they
Hmm.
are, and giving them that permission to be themselves and make their
Yeah.
own choices, and actually truly be autonomous in their business.
Hmm.
And overcome some of that fear that like everything's going to come crashing down. Like I used to change my shirt for every single meeting that I had. Like I would be wearing like, you know, a
Yeah.
simple t-shirt if I just was meeting with like a colleague. And then if I had a business meeting, then I would maybe put on a different blouse. And then if I thought it was going to be a high paying contract, I'd put on like a blazer. And it was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is
I've
ridiculous.
totally done that.
Um, Yes, yes. And I mean, it's fine to some sense, but I was just kind of
Um,
like, I really feel like instead of me running my business, like my business is running me, and I don't like that. And I just
mm,
want to be wearing tie-dye. So we're going to be doing that.
that's so
And
good.
so it's such a small example, but like
Yeah.
the day that I wore like ripped jeans to a networking event, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just because I was like exuding a different type of confidence,
Mm,
or I seemed more approachable. But I got so many more like leads and connections that day than when
wow.
I had been like uncomfy trying to like tuck
Hmm.
my shirt in right and all that jazz. So,
Wow.
sorry, I really got off a tangent about the framework, but I start with identity
So
and just
good.
bring
It's so good.
people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I bring people back to just remembering who they want to be in their
Yeah.
business, and it doesn't have to be the best version of themselves. Because I think that's another
Mm,
thing that kind of like freaks people out is being the best version of themselves. And it's like, no, just
yeah.
be yourself, like whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And then next we go into connection, and connection is like knowing who your audience is, relating to them,
Hmm.
having those like authentic and personal connection points, and then their offer, they have to have a strong offer. It has to be something that they enjoy doing that also
Yeah.
their audience wants. And then nurturing is kind of the marketing piece. Like, how do you take your personal stories and your offer and put those things together and start nurturing your audience and building personal connections and
Hmm.
relationships and building a raving fandom
Yeah. It's
with their
awesome.
inner celebrity?
I
So,
love it.
yeah.
I love it. It's so good. As I think about it, I just feel like um, a lot of people are still, maybe they're hesitant, maybe they're not, maybe they've been doing it for a long time, but maybe they haven't really like thought about themselves as a brand or whatever. Maybe they're still an employee of a company and they're like, no, I just am an employee. I don't really have my own brand. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of outside identity. What's like a first kind of tangible step for people to be like, yeah, I'm gonna build this brand. Like what would be like some tangible stuff that they could do to start building their brand per se?
Yeah. So I will say, I mean, some of it can just be personal or professional development. If they think that maybe they're looking for an out of their corporate
Hmm.
career, I think it's great to read things. A
Yeah.
big influence in my life was Reinventing You by Dory Clark, and just
Hmm.
thinking through like how can my skill set, work somewhere else.
Yeah.
I also always recommend like get back on LinkedIn if somebody isn't on LinkedIn, like get back on LinkedIn
Yeah.
or whatever platform or something you think that you're going to be making
Hmm.
connections. Make sure that it looks good, like update your
Hmm.
headshot, update your banner, like just those typical things to make
Yeah.
sure that your LinkedIn profile is optimized, and then
Hmm.
connect with people. And that is something that I did far before I went out on my own, is I started trying to connect with people that could be potential clients, and I would do networking marathons where I would have like one day on my calendar. I think I maybe even took PTO to do it. There's so many things
Wow.
I took PTO to do to try to like build my business. I remember
That's
one day I took
amazing.
PTO to take like an 8 hour course on like LinkedIn Learning, but I was just so motivated. But I did that. But
Yeah.
I would do networking marathons where I would make new connections, and I was pretty upfront, and I was like, hey, I'm going out on my own in the
Hmm.
next few months. I want to, get to like make some entrepreneur friends. I'm doing a
Hmm.
networking marathon on this day, 15 minutes. Like, if you can join, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of great connections, and that just helped me feel like I had some sense of community
Hmm.
before I went out on my own, and I was kind of able to just build that ramp a little bit. And I
Yeah.
still do stuff like that. I don't do the full day networking marathons anymore, but I do an actually social call. So if I make a new connection,
Hmm.
and I'm like, hey, if you just want to meet, no sales, no pitching, like just hang out, like share life
Yeah.
stories for 15
Yeah.
minutes, I have a call to just kind of chat with people that
Yeah.
way. But I think that that's
So
the
good.
best practice to do if someone is like, how do I build my brand? Is it's just being
Hmm.
known.
Yeah. Yeah. And start building some of those connections. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't do life alone. Like we're built for
Yeah.
for community, and we should lean into that. Um, you talking about taking time off made me think. What's at having owned a business, owning a business now? What's the craziest thing you've done or seen in business so far?
Hmm. That's such a wide question. I mean, the main thing that I think of that's just kind of a funny, like, red flag story is I don't know if
Hmm.
you've seen the movie Devil Wears Prada, but
No.
the main character of that movie is, I think, Miranda Priestley, played
Hmm.
by Meryl Streep. And
Hmm.
Miranda Priestley is like the worst boss that anybody could ever have. And one of the questions that I ask in my intake form, like, or in my,
Hmm.
like the identity part of the icon framework, is I
Yeah.
ask them, like, what's a celebrity, like, what celebrity would play you in a movie? And I had a
Hmm.
client say Miranda Priestley from Devil Wears Prada. And I had not seen the movie in a long time. So I was just like, oh, okay, she's like a boss,
Yeah.
she likes luxury, maybe she really likes fashion, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, this client did not pay her invoice and it was a whole ordeal and she was absolutely terrible to work with, and that was
Ah.
just kind of a funny like foreshadowing because I rewatched Devil Wears Prada after we had worked together to remember who Miranda Priestley was,
Uh,
and she was completely awful, and I was
oh
like, I
my
really should have seen that
goodness.
coming. But I got, so I always send my clients like a little client gift, and I had bought this client a little Miranda Priestley sticker.
Yeah.
Since she did not pay her invoice, I did not send it to her, but I put it on my file cabinet along with all my other like business stickers just as a
Yeah.
reminder of like that happens sometimes.
Wow.
And I equate it to Taylor Swift has a framed photo of when Kanye
Hmm.
took the mic from her, and
Oh
the
my
she has a phrase that
gosh.
just says like, it says like life is full of little interruptions, and I feel like
Hmm.
my Miranda Priestley was like just a little interruption in the flow of my
So
business.
solid. Wow.
So that's kind of the craziest thing. I mean, it's not that
I
wild,
love
but
it.
just the way that I
Yeah.
should have known has
Yeah.
been a little funny to me.
I love that. That might be one of the best intake questions ever.
It's
What
fun.
celebrity
Now I
do you
want to
connect
know.
with?
Yeah, who's your celebrity, Luke? Who's a celebrity
Oh,
that would play you in a movie?
I am a fangirl of Ryan Reynolds for sure.
Oh, yes. That's
And I think,
perfect.
and I
Absolutely perfect.
honestly, because it's like he's in movies, he owns businesses, he's got a like. I just I watched the David Letterman conversation with him. They were like in his house, and it was so cool because he's like just this normal dude. He had a a normal family, and then he was the one that was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it, and drove to Canada anyway. He's got a cool story, and I love the creativity he has, but I love the fact that he's just doing it so differently than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's a nice guy. I don't know that for sure, but he sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's got girls, so I feel like he has to be nice. I
Yes.
don't know if
I
that
feel
makes
like, yeah,
sense.
that it makes perfect sense that you would choose Ryan Reynolds. I feel like
Yeah.
y'all, I mean, not that I know Ryan Reynolds personally, but I know you, and I feel like y'all are both good people. So that's a
Wow.
perfect
Honored.
person to choose. I
Honored.
love that.
Yeah, he'll be my next guest on this podcast, so look out for
Perfect.
that. Um,
Awesome.
uh, but man, I love it, and I think I was talking to I think maybe it was like you know Elliot Lawless on
Yes.
LinkedIn. You're connected with her. She's like in your area.
Yeah.
We were chatting. Maybe it was a LinkedIn post a while ago about like um, taking your brand or your company and like identifying them as like TV show characters.
Yes. Oh, that's so fun.
I don't know if you remember that, but like I think we were like talking about Ellie, and I was like, oh my gosh, you are like totally um, Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, you know,
Yeah.
and like that's probably your brand. So, man, if more people did that, I wonder too if more people did that, like just even talk about like what celebrity or what character or whatever, like I wonder if they'd be able to like um, be more okay with their identity
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
weird way. Like, oh, I see that person doing it, I can live that way. Even though we don't want to be copycats,
Hmm.
there's something about that connection.
Yes.
Celebrity rant over. I am so curious. So I want to wrap up here. We got a couple more questions, Julia.
Sure.
Uh, at Parable, we talk about parables for companies. We talk about parables
Yeah.
being kind of the core within a company. And for me, I look at a parable. This is like a short story. It's when it's spoken to the right people, the right crowd, in the right way at the right time. I think it leaves massive impact. And we've all been impacted by other people's parables, by other companies' stories. Um, and so, uh, if you were to kind of like trunk your company uh, into a parable, what would that sound like?
Yeah. Well, I will bring my faith into it since it's parable, right? So I always think I want solopreneurs to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made and that they
Mm,
are gifted. They have gifts given to them by God that
come
they
on.
can use to serve other people.
Yeah.
And so I help them do that. I help them realize that, knowing who they are is not a bad thing. It's a very
Yeah.
special thing and it's valuable.
So good. My goodness. That was so succinct and wonderful. I
I
hope
did my best.
you did a great job. And I hope if you're listening, if you're watching, you're encouraged by that. Um, we also talk about, helping take businesses kind of out of their desert, out of their wilderness and into the kind of their promised land, into their oasis. And a lot of times that looks like, just better understanding themselves, better understanding their identity, better understanding their story and being able to kind of um, share that with their clients and future employees. Would you say there's sort of a promised land? Interpret that how you want, but is there kind of a promised land for your personal brand coach?
Yeah. Would it be the promised land that my clients reach or the promised land that I reach?
Give me both if you can.
Okay. I think the promised land that my clients would reach is I don't want to say the absence of fear,
Mm-hmm.
but absence of fear or doubt that they are worth sharing. Um, Kind
Mm-hmm.
of just very similar to my small parable. And I
Yeah.
think it's probably very similar to me,
Yeah.
or for me. It's similar for me that I want to continue showing up authentically. I know we're so tired of the word authentically, but truly, like,
Yeah.
I think my promised land will be to build a business that I am proud of and that I feel
Mm-hmm.
myself in.
Yeah.
A lot of new business owners, they're always looking at somebody else as their measure of success and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be a copycat and how did they do it, and
Yeah.
I want to carve my own path,
Yeah.
and I think that that will be my sense of a promised land.
Man, that's so good. So refreshing. So peaceful. Um, Last thought I have here for you today is as you look at, I love the word landscape today, but I'm going to keep using it because it sounds good. If you look at the
Yeah.
landscape of other businesses, could be other solopreneurs, could be um, small, large corporations, doesn't really matter. Who are, two or three brands that you feel like are just like they're doing it different? They kind of pique your interest. Maybe
Yeah.
they're acting like celebrities and it's like, man, I just like they're not doing it like everybody else. Who are
Yeah.
like two or three brands that kind of stick out to you that are crushing it right now?
Yeah, so I will say Ariel Lee. I don't know if you know her
Yes,
or are connected with her on LinkedIn. Yep, she's a
the
financial advisor with
unicorn
Edward
queen.
Jones. Yes, she is amazing. And she's such a good example of someone. I
Yeah.
know Edward Jones financial advisors, they kind of ride the line of like having their own business, but also being under a corporate
Yeah.
umbrella in a way. And I think that she's such a good example of like, lots of other financial advisors would think like, okay, I'm doing financial things. I might be managing a lot of money. I got to be
Hmm.
serious. Like, I got to, wear
Yeah.
green for money and peace or something. And
Yeah.
she's just like, she's wearing pink, she's got
Yeah.
pearls, like she is just the most like out
Oh
there
man. Yeah.
person. She'll share, crazy stories. Like
Hmm.
I so look up to her in the way that she does things.
Hmm.
Um and then I will say I had a recent client who I know she's going to go big places. Her name is Chastity Alexander.
Nice.
And she is she's carving her own path. I know, I think she
Yeah.
does still have a full-time job, but she is going out on her own as a habits and wellness coach. And
Cool.
she is just so on fire. She's so
Yeah.
cool. She has such a heart for people, and she's been through her own journey,
Yeah.
amazing weight loss journey, and just changing her habits.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I know she's like blossoming, but I just think she's amazing.
Man.
So those are two. I'm trying to think of a third one. I think Chris Hennessy. He
Yes.
is just such a cool dude. He has such
Yeah.
an awesome story. He also just shows up, and
Yeah.
he just like has a selfie every day. I'm like, I want that level of confidence too, where I'm taking a selfie every day to share.
Yeah. I love
But
that.
yeah, he's so just authentic and warm and just awesome. And of
Man.
course you. So
Wow.
I'll just end with
Honored.
that.
Honored. 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 You
Yeah.
heard it here first, folks. Juliet Peay approved. Luke Frazier and Parable Brand. How can
Yep.
people follow you, find you, connect with you moving forward?
Yeah. Of course, on LinkedIn, you can just find me, Juliet Peay, and my website is yourpersonalbrandcoach.com. But
Mhm.
I always love to hang out on LinkedIn. That's my place.
And if you haven't ever, please spend 15 minutes with Juliet, at least, at minimum. It'll be wildly entertaining and valuable. And so you'll have so much fun with that. Juliet, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.